welcome back to Des Moines. So how do we handicap this race in the Iowa caucuses tomorrow night? We talked with two veterans of political campaigns here, Mike Murphy, who ran John McCain's campaign, and Bob Schrum, who ran the campaigns of Al Gore and John Kerry. We talked with them on the campus of the University of Southern California before we left. They're with the Center for the Political Future. Bob Schrum, Mike Murphy, thanks for doing this. Bob, first of all, why is it so tough to poll in Iowa?
Because you got to guess as best you can who's likely to actually show up at the caucuses. So, for example, in 2008, there was a big belief on the part of the Hillary people that they had enough support from their polling, and she was going to win the caucuses. The Obama people assumed a much larger universe and that they were going to win the caucuses, that many more people were going to vote, especially young people, than had voted in the past. And it turned out on caucus night that the Obama people were right, but they had very different polling.
The other problem is so many people are calling so many people, organizers in every county, campaign voter contact calls, and Seltzer, when it's the Des Moines Register poll, says it's almost impossible to physically poll now and get a good sample. If I were in Iowa, I'd stop believing too many polls right now. It's time just to go campaign and win or lose.
Right, and for people in California who don't appreciate what a caucus is, it's a completely different animal.
It's totally different. It's unlike a primary. It's not like voting machines and you go in. You go into a large area, you line up in different corners, groups of people out in the open, depending on who you're for. If somebody doesn't get to 15%, then they vote again, and you walk across the gym floor to another candidate or go home. But here's the problem. You were for Amy. You got to 12%, so now you got to vote for somebody else. You didn't make 15. So you walk past the veterinarian you called in the middle of the night to save your animals, standing over at Biden. And there's the high school football coach watching you from Mayor Pete, and there's the guy at the bank you got to borrow the $100,000 for the harvester from, sitting over there at Elizabeth Warren. So that is a painful walk of persuasion where they jump on you.
And you have organization designed to deliver your caucus goers to the caucus, but you've asked them, like, say, a month ago, who they're for. And a fair percentage of the time, they're getting on the bus that you've provided, they're going to the caucus, and then they're not caucusing for your candidate.
Yeah, it's like asking your kid, you want to go for vanilla ice cream? Yes, and you get there, I want Rocky Road. What just happened? So there's no law that says voters who sign a card at a rally a month ago that I'm for you on a 1 of a scale have to stay there. And the campaign changes, so the voters change their opinions.
And so the idea of having a second candidate, that's important in Iowa because of the caucus, and that's why some candidates, maybe Bernie, maybe Elizabeth, wanted to hold their fire because they didn't want to alienate somebody who may end up in their camp.
But the danger they're both in right now is that in a lot of precincts, because they're being so kind to each other, one or both of them could fall below the 15% threshold. They would get no delegates, and their people would have to go walk over and join somebody else.
How many people do you think come out of Iowa and New Hampshire that will be viable?
I like to say 2.5. The top two and somebody who was third and interesting. But part of it is the weighting of the system. If you're a super front runner like Joe Biden originally, you can finish second and go on to fight again in New Hampshire. If you come in third or fourth, nobody says you have to get out of the race, but that's a real body blow. On the other hand, if you're somebody who was nowhere and you get up to third or second, Klobuchar out of nowhere to third, Mayor Pete to first or second, then you're on rocket fuel into New Hampshire. But we all joke in New Hampshire, Iowa's important, but New Hampshire always likes to say they choose corn, we choose president. So there can be a backlash, too. When in doubt, top two.
Do you not have a bracket, though? It's not who wins the tournament, but who wins the progressive bracket or the moderate bracket?
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to break it down quite that way this time. And in fact, it could be more confusing than it's ever been because the Iowa Democratic Party is going to report 3 results. Yeah. Number 1, delegate equivalence. Who got how many delegates to the next level, which is regional, and then it goes to the state convention. Number 2, the original raw vote. Who came in and voted for what candidate? So that even if you got 3%, they're going to say you got 3%. And then the redone vote after they force people who haven't met the 15% threshold to go join somebody else. So if it's very close in Iowa, you could conceivably have 2 or 3 different winners.
Joe Biden has been routinely diminished as a long-term candidate because of the problems in the debates.
We talk about this a lot. I've been short Biden. Bob's been longer. In the conventional wisdom right now, and maybe the reality, Biden seems to be doing pretty well. But I still think the specter of a third-place finish is out there in Iowa. We'll see. If not, If he's top 2 against Bernie, maybe, and does okay in New Hampshire a week later, he could run the table to South Carolina.
By the way, I've already won the bet.
We had a bet last year.
Mike bet me that he would be gone before Iowa, so he owes me dinner.
So, but if Biden is top 2 in Iowa, top 2 in New Hampshire, he's going to run the table because he's going to win in Nevada, he's going to win in South Carolina.
If he can stay on the surfboard, he's still Joe Biden. But yeah, it'll be very hard for him to lose if it's like him and Bernie out of New Hampshire and his vote in South Carolina. Now, Bloomberg's sitting out there doing the late start strategy, which almost never works, but Bloomberg has 2 things going for him to maybe pull it off. One, he doesn't need donors, so lousy polls don't affect him. He can spend, like he has, hundreds of millions of dollars building a March opportunity, but he needs the party to be terrified of a Bernie or a Warren instead of a Biden. And so, you know, that's a perfect storm for him, and that'll be down to Bernie. And can Joe get into the top 2? Or if Joe falters, then will they go to Mayor Pete, or will they go to Bloomberg laying in wait in March?
Bloomberg does not control his own fate for all of his resources. He needs Bernie Sanders or maybe Elizabeth Warren to look like they've emerged and Biden has faltered, fallen apart. Then I think he's going to say to the party, look, if you want somebody who's center left, not harder left, not further out toward the left, then you have to come to me, and he'll have the resources to make that fight. But if Biden somehow or other emerges, if he does well in Iowa, does well in New Hampshire, wins Nevada, wins South Carolina, then I don't think there's much opportunity for Bloomberg. And he's a realist. I suspect he would stop trying to win the nomination and start trying to help Democrats defeat Trump in November.
I think it might even help Biden. If it comes down to an epic struggle between the left with Bernie and the center left with Biden, I think Bloomberg might very well get on all that apparatus and muscle on Biden.
But you're talking about Bloomberg and not Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar, who are also in that
if
category.
If Buttigieg is top 2 in Iowa and he beats Joe Biden, rocket fuel.
What are the odds that California is going to be, you're going to have upwards of 6 viable candidates campaigning here on March 3rd?
You know, I would tell anybody who wants to win California, go campaign in New Hampshire and South Carolina, because it really is a bounce system. This state's too big for that. The only person really competing here right now is Bloomberg, because he has television, but if he doesn't win something or Biden doesn't falter, that'll close up quick. So the route to Los Angeles County runs through Columbia, South Carolina, and Manchester, New Hampshire.
The Iowa caucus is also being used as an educational opportunity for college students around the nation, including some from Southern California, those who are interested in politics and others interested in journalism. That when we return.